Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. I want you to cast your minds back to Ahsoka episode 6. We heard a term that we've never heard in the Star Wars saga before, a boken Jedi. It was used by Baylan Skoll to describe Ezra Bridger, and I guess by extension, his own apprentice Shin Hati. When Baylan uses the term, Shin identifies herself in it. Baylan denies it though, and says that unlike Ezra, she was made for so much more. She isn't a Jedi. Although by definition, she is boken. So what does the word mean? A Jedi who was trained in the wild. Someone who wasn't part of the original Jedi Order before it fell during Order 66, outside of the strict rules and regulations of the Jedi Temple of old. Now the word boken is a Japanese term used to describe a wooden sword for training in kenjutsu. Following in the footsteps of George Lucas, this would not be the first time Star Wars has taken Japanese culture as influence. And while fans made deductions about what the word boken Jedi means, until today, there was no official definition. It is pretty self-explanatory, but thanks to the brand new Acolyte visual dictionary, it's a different Star Wars series that gives us answers. And like I say, Japanese culture, Japanese samurai traditions have inspired the saga since A New Hope. Even the word Jedi is a riff on the Japanese term jidaigeki, which refers to period drama films and TV shows set in historical Japan. These often feature samurai. But when the term boken was spoken, Star Wars fans realized how much this reframes what we assumed about the Skywalker saga. For instance, in Return of the Jedi, Yoda says to Luke, "When gone am I, the last of the Jedi will you be?" In 1983 that made sense, but with all of the additional material, all of the shows, the books, the comics, we know there were several Jedi around, and Yoda knew it. So why did he say to Luke that he would be the last Jedi? Well, my friends, the existence of the term boken kind of gives him an out, because while Yoda knew that people like Ezra and Ahsoka were around, Yoda was notoriously rigid with what he considered a traditional Jedi, trained in the classic methods. And there's actually proof of this in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Even before the Great Jedi Purge, Yoda lamented that for the last couple of generations, Jedi standards had been slipping. The ways of the Jedi of old that he learnt from his master in Kata del Gormo had been lost to time. In many ways, Yoda was a gatekeeper. We like to think of Jedi like Mace Windu as pretty stringent, but Yoda was worse. What he expected from those with the title of Jedi was far greater than anyone else in the Order for some time. So you might be saying, well, surely Luke was also a boken Jedi. Well, I guess because Luke was trained by Obi-Wan and Yoda, they made the exception. It's like we are the remnants of the true Jedi of old, and because you were mentored by us, even if you are in a technical sense a boken, you're an honorary true Jedi. It's a symbolic succession. And also, you know, he was Anakin's son, part of Obi-Wan and Yoda's plan for A New Hope. Well, what about Ahsoka, you might say? She was trained at the Jedi Temple. Isn't she a true Jedi? She's surely not a boken. That's true. But remember that Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, and during the time period of episode 6, all the way up to Mando season 2, Ahsoka did not consider herself a Jedi. That was only in Ahsoka season 1, a few years after Yoda's death. So on his deathbed, in his mind, Ahsoka was of little use to the future of the Jedi. But I would argue that Baylan's use of the term boken shows a kind of elitism amongst the prequel trilogy Jedi. Because Baylan was one of them. He trained during the time of Yoda, he was part of the Order when the Clone Wars came to an end during Order 66. He was a Jedi General, and even though he's moved away from that, even now when he's gone a different path, some of that elitism is still ingrained in him. Because boken is almost like an accusation. It upholds an elite system where it says, you're less than me, because you didn't train under the Order. It has the connotation of impurity. It's a dirty word, a word that if you levied towards a Jedi back during the Prequel-era, they would have taken as a fighting term. You would never have used it back then. It's like saying someone's a mudblood, if you're a fan of Harry Potter. It challenges traditional Jedi identity. It comes across as, no matter how hard you train, you're not really a Jedi. I guess in the case of Shin, that's fine, because she never was. She's not a light side user, she's more of a dark Jedi. But like I said, my dear friends, Lucasfilm has finally given us some more insight into the term. Not in any Ahsoka-related material, but instead in the Acolyte visual guide. I covered some areas of the book, but now we turn to one of the pages concerning the Padawan Jeki Lon, Daphne Keen's character who was half Thelan, half human. And taking more inspiration from the Japanese definition, the book says, quote, "The wooden boken are a traditional training tool, useful during repeated drills or learning new forms. They were just a stand-in for actual lightsabers. They say Jackie-Lon excels in sparring classes. She welcomes varied experiences from wielding boken of different lengths, weights, and substances. But of course she met her gruesome demise at the hands of the stranger, Chimera. So that's the explanation. Given the Jedi were based on samurai, like I said, it makes sense for a boken to be a replacement or a stand-in for a lightsaber. Boken were also used to help with speed and to improve lightsaber form accuracy without the wielder getting injured. And in a way this shines some light on what Baylan was talking about. Boken, in the sense of a Bokken Jedi, is entirely symbolic. A boken is literally a fake wooden weapon, and so the term being applied to a force wielder kind of suggests a caricature of the real thing, but not quite the real deal. So when we're talking about Baylan's elitism, I don't think there was ever a part of him when he was training Shin that believed she could live up to his standards, or even ever come close to being as powerful as him. Even, like I say, as he moved away from Jedi philosophy, whatever path he's following, this revelation kind of confirms he had a superiority complex. And the use of the term Bokken Jedi is not the only example of this, by the way. When he talks about the dreams and madness of Peridea, and the fairy tales he heard as a Padawan back on Coruscant, he talks condescendingly to Shin, as if she could never understand, because she wasn't raised at the temple. It's a subtle way he's condescending, and I bet this belief is the reason he thinks he's been chosen by whatever's calling out to him. He has a main character complex, and I'm still holding on to the wild theory that maybe he was jealous of Anakin, because the Jedi believed he was the chosen one. Maybe Baylan thinks he is. And now with everything on Peridea, with maybe Abeloth calling out to him, he's gonna double down on his arrogance. Does he want to take the role of the father or the son? And could Anakin's Force ghost stop him? But rewatch the scenes where he's lecturing Shin. It's more than just a teacher-student dynamic. He talks about finding the beginning. And while he tells her she's made for so much more than someone like Ezra, as his calling gets stronger, there's a hint he thinks she's holding him back. And so, he leaves her abandoned and says they're on different paths. It truly reinforces this power imbalance, as if you're just a copy of something I knew firsthand. And like I said before, my dear friends, I think Shin's lack of structure, combined with the abandonment, could unleash within her something truly dreadful. Could she turn fully to the dark side? And just to finish, my dear friends, I wasn't a fan of the Acolytes, but Jackie-Lon has a very cool character design. And the book does a great job in justifying reasons why half her features are Thelan and half are human. For example, the reason she doesn't have hooves. She died in such a horrible way though, but the lightsaber fight was great. So there you have it, my dear friends. What do you think of the term Bokken Jedi? And do you agree or disagree it upholds a kind of prequel Jedi elitism? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, my dear friends. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.